My name is Tara Simpson. I'm 66 years old, retired, and living by myself in Riverside. My husband died young, so I raised our daughter Sylvia all on my own back then. I worked around the clock at the local textile mill, long, grueling shifts that wore my body down and left aches that never fully went away. Even after retirement, I stayed busy, scrubbing floors, taking on odd jobs, doing whatever was necessary to make ends meet slowly, but surely, penny by penny, year after year. I managed to save $152,000. That money is my safety net, my secret weapon against the uncertainties of aging, my most dependable companion for whatever comes next. I have only one daughter, who has her own life and family now, and I'm determined not to be a burden to her, not in the slightest. To me, that money isn't just digits in a bank account. It's my partner, my quiet, steady other half. 3 years ago, Sylvia married Todd Miller, and the newlyweds settled nearby in Riverside Commons. They bought their home on a mortgage, and from what I could tell, the monthly payments were no small strain. Todd was always charming, greeting me with a warm smile and the right words. Whenever he came over, he brought gifts, sometimes more thoughtful than what Sylvia ever gave. He treated me with such kindness it almost seemed too good to be real. On weekends, he'd stop by to clean my windows or mop my floors, and if a light bulb went out or the faucet leaked, one call and he'd show up in minutes, still smiling like he genuinely wanted to help. Watching them laugh and live like a happy couple warmed me like sunshine piercing a cold winter morning. Sure, sometimes his eagerness felt a bit over the top, but I told myself it's rare these days to see young people respect their elders. So I took it as a good sign Sylvia had married well, and as her mother, I was truly glad for her. When they were short on money, I'd quietly slip them a little cash. Not much, just enough to help. But when it came to larger sums, I never let my guard down. Not once. All I wanted was a quiet, secure retirement. A peaceful old age, with my daughter happy, my savings safe, no need to lean on anyone, and no risk of becoming anyone's problem. That was the plan. But in recent months, something started feeling off. Todd began stopping by more often than usual, still smiling and helpful, but there was a new edge to it. He wasn't just dropping in for small talk anymore. He'd slip casual comments here and there, trying to sound natural. "Tara, is your pension enough to cover everything? You used to work at that big old textile mill, right? Must have saved a bit. Heard you do some investing too." He made it sound like innocent curiosity, but his eyes scanned me like he was calculating my worth. At first, I brushed it off, thinking he was just being considerate. But as it happened repeatedly, I started hearing the questions beneath the questions, and my stomach tightened. Then came the size of it. The casual complaints. He told me he and his brother Kevin were planning to launch a direct-to-consumer organic farm business, calling it a golden opportunity, just needing a little seed money to get started other times. He griped about their small house, saying they were thinking about having kids and really needed a bigger place. But the down payment? That was the mountain crushing him. Let's call it what it was. He wanted me to pay. That's when I got cautious. It wasn't stinginess. I just couldn't stand how sneaky he was being about it. If he wanted to start a business, fine. I could respect that. But even real brothers settle things with clear terms. So why did he think I'd just hand over my life savings like it was nothing? I'd worked too damn hard for that money. So I smiled, played along, and dodged with vague answers. "Oh, my little pension covers groceries and bills. Just fine. No extra cash for investing or anything fancy. I think it's great you're thinking about building something, but business takes patience. You have to take it step by step. Can't just dive in head first." I never mentioned exactly how much I'd saved. Always kept it vague. Because here's the truth. You can't read people's hearts just by looking at their faces. Even if he's my son-in-law, I've learned to keep my cards close. Not because I'm petty, but because money can turn people ugly faster than you'd believe. I have to protect what's mine. My quiet, loyal companion Sylvia brought it up a couple of times, saying Todd was feeling the pressure lately, wanting to prove himself and build something on his own. "Mom, that project Todd's been talking about with his brother, it actually sounds kind of promising. Do you think maybe you could help a little?" Her voice was soft, and she wouldn't meet my eyes. The moment she said it, I knew Todd had been working on her, feeding her the pitch. My daughter, bless her, is kind to a fault. She loves wholeheartedly, and trusts Todd like he hung the moon. I sighed, took her hand, and gently said, Sylvia, starting a business isn't a game. It's not that I don't want to support you both, but this money is my retirement. If it all goes south, what do I do? Todd needs to get a steady job first. Let him save up when he's built some capital of his own. Then we'll talk. If I can help, I will. She didn't argue, but I saw a flicker of disappointment in her eyes. And just like that, the whole thing planted itself like a tiny thorn under my skin. Not sharp enough to scream, but enough to sting repeatedly. That weekend, Sylvia said they were coming over for dinner, so I set the table with all their favorite dishes, taking my time with every detail. The roast was perfect, the salad crisp, and the wine breathing on the counter. I wanted it to feel like home. At dinner, Todd was more attentive than usual. Overly so. He kept refilling my glass and checking in on how I was feeling, even swapping out my old wine glass for a brand new set he brought with him. Tara, he said, flashing that practiced smile under the warm dining room light. I know you love your red wine, so I picked up a new glass set for you. Last time I was here, I noticed yours were looking a little worn. He kept raising his glass to toast me, clinking it against mine with exaggerated cheer, knocking back drink after drink. His cheeks flushed quickly, and his words began to slur slightly, but I knew better. Todd could hold his liquor. This was a performance. By the time the wine was halfway gone and the plates were cleared, he put his glass down and leaned in, his eyes glassy with something that wasn't quite alcohol. Tara, he drawled, his voice too smooth and slow. There's something I've been meaning to tell you. I leaned back, watching him carefully. I knew that tone, something was coming. Go ahead, I said, calm and steady. Sylvia keeps telling me you've only got a little money saved for retirement, but I don't buy it. His body leaned toward me, his voice dropping low but carrying an unsettling certainty. You've worked your whole life. No way you only have that little come on. Can't you just be straight with me? How much do you really have saved? He paused, then hurried to wave his hands as if stepping on a landmine. No, don't get me wrong. I'm not trying to pry, really. I just worry about you. There are so many scams out there, and what if you're keeping your money somewhere unsafe or someone tricks you into handing it over? If you told me the exact number, maybe I could help you manage it better, you know? His voice sounded concerned, but behind his eyes, I caught something sharper, something calculating. He was fishing, not even hiding the bait. Sylvia reached out and gently tugged his arm. Todd, you've had too much to drink, let's not. But Todd shrugged her off, his voice rising just enough to make the room feel smaller. I'm fine. I'm just worried about Tara, that's all. Drunk talk, please, I said. This was rehearsed. He'd waited for the wine to loosen the mood before going for the ask. All right, Todd, you want to play? This old lady's got a few cards of her own. I let out a long, weary sigh, softening my voice with just the right mix of hesitation and wounded tenderness. I looked at him with a forced smile. Todd, you're my son-in-law, which makes you practically my own son. Since you asked, I won't lie. I paused for effect, lowering my voice to a near whisper, adding a slight tremble to my words. I've scrimped and saved all my life, and all I've got to show for it is about $20,000. I raised 2 fingers slowly in the air, letting the number fall like a leaf drifting down. My eyes dropped to the table, my voice growing soft and low. That's it. I don't touch that money unless I absolutely have to. Us older folks, we don't think about growing wealth anymore, just about surviving and having some peace of mind. As I spoke, I kept one eye on him, watching every twitch and flicker. When I said 20,000, it hit him like a slap. His eyes froze, pupils tightened. There it was, a sharp little flash of disappointment, clear as day, like ripples spreading across still water. He tried to laugh it off, but I caught that awkward pause. 20. He repeated it, as if he needed to hear it again, maybe to believe it. He forced a couple dry chuckles and nodded like it was no big deal. Well, that's not bad at all. T? You ought to keep that safe. Lots of shady people out there looking to take advantage. His voice softened, growing vague, and that warmth drained out like someone pulled the plug. Suddenly, the room felt colder. The rest of dinner was strange. Todd grew silent, barely touching his food, pushing it around his plate like he was calculating something, no doubt realizing how far 20 grand fell short. Afterwards, he said his phone was dying and asked if he could charge it in my bedroom. Sylvia was in the kitchen washing dishes, leaving me alone in the living room. The TV hummed in the background, some late-night talk show playing, voices mixed with canned laughter. Todd slipped into the bedroom, the door almost closing behind him, but not quite, leaving a narrow crack. Something inside me stiffened. An old, sharp instinct tapped the back of my mind. Something's not right. I set down the remote, stood quietly, and tiptoed toward the bedroom, careful not to creak the floorboards or make any sudden moves. Holding my breath, I leaned just close enough to catch his words. His voice was low, almost a whisper. "Kev?" he asked. There was a pause, and I heard him listening. "She says she's only got 20. Frustration seeped in. He kept his voice low, but it was thick with disappointment, like someone who opened a treasure chest only to find it full of rocks. "Yeah, she's sticking to it, same as Sylvia said." Another pause. "That plan of ours? Probably not going to happen." "Then fine, I get it. What else can we do? Just put it on hold, we'll talk later." The line went dead. Silence settled like dust in the room. Only the soft mechanical hum of the air conditioner remained. I stood frozen, cold sweat running down my back, fingers tingling with adrenaline, a chill rising from my feet all the way to the base of my skull. The plan wasn't going as expected. So that was it? The charm, the thoughtful gifts, the housework, the warm smiles, none of it had been real. Todd wasn't helping out of kindness. He wasn't checking in because he cared, he was casing the place. All that sweetness was just camouflage in their minds. My savings, the full $152,000, had already been counted, divided, maybe even spent. They were just waiting for the handoff. Instead, I dropped a decoy 20 grand. And just like that, their scheme started to unravel. It hit me hard, a gut punch, heavy and paralyzing. I took a slow, deep breath, forcing myself to stay calm. I returned to the couch, picked up the remote, and pretended to flip through channels. The flickering blue light of the TV danced across my face, but my eyes weren't watching anymore. They were caught in the middle of a storm. Todd came out of the bedroom minutes later. His face was pale, jaw tight, and there was a shadow in his eyes he couldn't shake. But as soon as he saw me, he forced on a smile. A weak, strained thing that looked more like a grimace. "Tara, I think we should head out. You should get some rest." Sylvia had just come out of the kitchen, drying her hands. He glanced up, confused. "Already? Why don't you stay a little longer?" No, Todd said quickly, tugging at her arm. "We've got an early morning." He practically dragged her toward the door. That's when I saw it, the rush to leave, the urge to escape in his posture. I walked them out, closed the door behind them, and returned to the silence of the living room. Only the TV spoke now, its flickering blue glow pulsing on the walls like a heartbeat. I sat down and let my thoughts spool out like a film reel, replaying the phone call in my mind again and again. Todd's voice, his words, all the strange behavior from the last few weeks flashing like snapshots in a montage. The prying questions about my finances, the stories about needing money, the stress, the size of it all, the fake drunkenness, hoping I'd drop my guard, the crushing disappointment when he heard 20, and worst of all, that sentence that echoed like a warning bell. That plan of ours? It's probably not going to happen. Everything clicked. The gestures, the smiles, the words. Then, just for a moment, a terrifying thought. What if I had told him the truth? What if I'd given them the real number? What would have happened next? I shivered, took a breath so deep it hurt, and shoved the fear back down. I couldn't afford to panic or break down. Not now. That would only scare them off, make them regroup, and come back with something more subtle, more dangerous. I had to stay calm, stay ahead, find out exactly what their plan was, then protect every penny of my money. After I told Todd how much I'd saved, something in him changed. It wasn't subtle, almost comical. He still smiled when we saw each other, sure, but that smile was different. It wasn't warm anymore. It had the charm of a receptionist trained to be polite but distant, thin and utterly devoid of feeling. The handyman act vanished, too. No more weekend visits, no offers to fix leaky faucets or change light bulbs. Most tellingly, he never mentioned money again. It was like that dinner, that quiet interrogation, had never happened. As if the 20 grand I fed him was a slip of the tongue or something he'd misheard. But I knew better. I knew it wasn't over. Not with Todd, not with Kevin. Those two brothers weren't quitters. Sure enough, it didn't take long for them to change tactics. Todd stopped coming alone instead. He brought Kevin more and more on the surface. They came by for dinner or company, but I knew the real reason. They were hunting for the info they couldn't get the first time. They were just trying a different approach. Kevin was younger by a few years, not as clean-cut as Todd, but he made up for it with charm. From the moment he walked in, it was, "Hi, Aunt Tara," warm and casual. His eyes darted around, scanning every corner, every clue. His mouth never stopped moving, a mile a minute. He had that slippery kind of energy that some call clever, but to me, it always sets off alarm bells. He was never still jumping up to rub Todd's shoulders or settling next to me on the couch, talking nonstop. He asked about everything: what I ate, where I shopped, which neighbor's dog I liked. "Tara, this place is so neat. You've got such a good routine living alone. What kind of meals do you usually cook? Maybe I'll whip something up and bring it over next time. This neighborhood seems quiet and safe, right? You don't get nervous being alone at night?" I smiled, played the gracious host, answering every question with practiced ease, like I hadn't already seen through their game. But inside, every warning light was flashing red. I felt like an old fox curled up on her couch, watching two slick little weasels walk in with fake smiles and twitching noses, sniffing around, sizing up the meat in their den. I started noticing subtle things, the looks they exchanged when they thought I wasn't watching, those little flashes of silent understanding, like schoolboys plotting a scheme, hell-bent on making it work this time. They'd excuse themselves to smoke on the balcony or sneak off to the restroom one after the other, but their voices, their timing, the way they avoided my gaze before leaving the room. It was obvious they were sneaking off to talk, plotting. They tried working solo, now they were doubling up. What did they think? That I was easy to fool just because I smiled and made them dinner? "Let's see what you've got, boys." One afternoon, they put on a full show in my living room, a two-man play. Kevin lit up like a kid on Christmas morning. Todd's eyes lit up with a rehearsed enthusiasm as he told me about their vertical farming project. "We've been working on this," he said, voice full of practiced excitement. "It's super low cost, yields a lot, and totally sustainable, plus it's local and supported by the community. We've got the whole plan laid out, just need the push to get started." He took on the role of the quiet, thoughtful partner. Then, sounding heavy with regret, he admitted, "The real problem is, we're short on startup capital. Otherwise, it'd be an obvious choice." Kevin jumped in smoothly, as slick as ever. "Right? Missing this chance would be a real shame, Aunt Tara. What do you think?" And just like that, the question landed squarely in my lap. Kevin's eyes gleamed with anticipation, like he was waiting for the jackpot numbers to fall. I took a deliberate, slow sip of my tea, letting the silence stretch just enough before I gently set the cup down with a soft thud. "Well," I said, calm and composed, my expression unreadable, "it does sound promising." Both men leaned forward, eager. "But you know what they say," I continued evenly. "The sweeter the sales pitch, the more cautious you should be. There's no such thing as a free lunch. Every investment carries risk, and chasing quick returns usually leaves you empty-handed." The spark in Kevin's eyes dimmed briefly the instant I finished speaking. Todd's mouth twitched almost imperceptibly, but I caught it, that tiny crack in his carefully maintained facade. "Thought you could sweet-talk me, huh? Better luck next time, that money? Not yours. Never will be." They tried going straight at me, but I shut it down hard. When the charm offensive failed, Todd switched tactics. Instead of confronting me directly, he started working through Sylvia. It was the slow, simmering approach, whispered doubts, gentle guilt trips that dripped as steadily as a leaky faucet. "Babe, I'm under so much pressure I can't keep this job forever. There's no future there. I have to build something of my own. But I don't have the funds to start. You know Daniel? His father-in-law invested in his food truck, and now he's doing great. I'm not asking for much, just a little faith. Your mom has money, she could help. Why won't she? I'm your husband. Doesn't that make me family too? These words, fed to Sylvia softly with tired eyes, seeped in slowly, like warm water easing around a frog. Not loud, not pushy, just persistent. And Sylvia, my sweet, loyal girl with the kindest heart, believed him. She still does. She saw Todd as hard-working, ambitious, a man with a dream to build something better. Step by step, Todd wove her deeper into his web. He came around more often, always helpful, always kind. But something in her eyes had shifted, a heavy shadow lurking behind her glances, something unspoken until finally the day she spoke. She just finished trimming vegetables, still wearing her apron, perched nervously on a kitchen stool, twisting the hem of the fabric between her fingers. "Mom?" "Yes, darling," I said softly, already sensing where this was headed. Todd's been under a lot of stress, his brother's project. It actually sounds pretty promising. She glanced up briefly, then looked away quickly, unable to meet my gaze. "I was wondering that 20,000? Could you maybe lend a little just to help them get started?" Todd said it's temporary. As soon as they turn a profit, he'll pay you back, even with interest. I expected this moment, but my heart ached, not for the money, but for her. My daughter, my own flesh and blood, being turned into a pawn. Not a partner, not an ally, just a piece in a game she didn't even know was being played. I looked at her and felt a sharp sting inside. Not anger, but deep pain I couldn't explode. Not now I couldn't rip the blindfold off her eyes or shatter her faith in Todd all at once. That would only break her, and maybe their marriage. So I swallowed the fire rising in my chest, keeping my voice calm, warm, and measured. "Sylvia," I said quietly, locking eyes with her, "it's not that I don't want to help, but you have to understand that money is my safety net. It's all I've got." I paused, letting the silence hang heavy before adding firmly, though without harshness, "Business is never a sure bet. What if it fails? What if that money vanishes? What happens then? Who will cover my bills? My future? You and Todd? Can you really afford that risk?" He went still in her mind. My words hit home. She parted her lips to speak, but closed her mouth again. She knew the answer. Of course she did. They barely managed their mortgage, let alone anyone else's expenses. "Mom," she murmured, voice trembling, "I know it's been hard for you. I want to help Todd, that's all." I raised a hand gently to stop her, my tone growing heavier with meaning. "Sylvia, it's good for a man to want to build something, but it must come from his own strength, work, and effort. When you build on another person's sacrifice, especially by pressuring your own mother, you may get the money, but you won't get far. That kind of money carries weight, but it won't carry him." That landed hard. She looked stunned, as if I'd slapped her with a truth she didn't want, but couldn't deny. "Mom, how could you say that about Todd? He's not like that." I held her gaze, slow and steady. "Are you sure?" I asked softly. "Think about how he's acted lately. The way he asks, the timing, the pressure. Haven't you noticed anything off?" She said nothing. She couldn't. My daughter, my baby, the center of my world, was now the thing tearing me apart. She believed she was protecting love, but she didn't see how Todd had used her as a messenger, a battering ram, the final key to break down my defenses. When she finally stood, her eyes red and shining, the air between us thick with tension and hurt, she left without a glance back, walking faster than usual. Angry and wounded, I didn't follow. I knew the wall rising between us, brick by bitter brick, wasn't hers, it was Todd's. Now that his route through Sylvia had failed, and my 20,000 seemed all the more real, Todd went quiet again. Visits slowed, smiles faded, but relief never came. Men like Todd don't quit. They regroup. He was waiting, planning, watching for the slightest crack in my armor. So I decided, if he was waiting for his next move, maybe I should make mine first. That afternoon, I set the trap. I'd printed a fake investment brochure from the library, a neat little pamphlet titled Community Organic Garden Partnership Program. At the top, I circled a keyline in bold red pen. Initial investment $5,000. Projected return 12 to 14%. I placed it under the lamp in the center of the dining table, right where the sunlight hit the wood perfectly. Then I moved to the kitchen, fussing with a bowl of fruit, just as Todd walked through the front door. I'd left my old phone nearby, already dialed into a speakerphone conversation. Well, I'm telling you, I can maybe scrape together $5,000, but that's pushing it. I need to hold on to the rest for medical expenses someday. You said it's low risk and stable returns, but that's a quarter of what I've got. Makes me nervous. From the corner of my eye, I saw Todd freeze mid-shoe removal. His gaze locked onto the table, fixed on the paper. He paused for a moment, then kept moving as if nothing had happened. I hung up, gasped softly, and feigned surprise. Goodness, Todd, you startled me. When did you get here? He shrugged, flashing that practiced grin. Just walked in Tara. I couldn't help overhearing. Did I hear you say you're thinking about investing? I set the phone down casually. Yeah, a friend recommended it. A community project sounds interesting. I only have $20,000 saved, so 5 is the most I can risk just experimenting, really. He glanced again at the brochure, trying to sound casual. You're seriously thinking about it? Is it legit? I pretended to hesitate. I haven't decided yet. Honestly, the amount is so small they're not rushing to let me in. I thought I'd get a second opinion from someone younger, more financially savvy. Todd's lips twitched, but his eyes betrayed him. They lit up. You know, he said, pulling a stool closer, it's great you're even considering investing, but if you want to be smart with your money, why not think about our farm project? At least it's family-run, we'd never steer you wrong. I took a slow sip of tea, blowing gently across the surface. Oh, honey, I said softly, when it's family, the knife cuts a little deeper. That's what makes it hurt. He blinked briefly, and his smile faltered. Tara, you're hilarious. He forced a chuckle as he spoke, and I took a quiet sip of my tea. Nowadays, even brothers by blood keep their accounts straight. So, a son-in-law, huh? Well, I think you get my point. He didn't respond, just stared blankly at the fruit bowl, his mind clearly racing 100 miles an hour. Sure enough, the very next day, Kevin appeared, his smile brighter than usual, almost too bright. Without even taking off his coat, he dove right in. Aunt Tara, Todd told me you're considering investing in a community farm, too. That's fantastic, we're working in the same area. I raised an eyebrow, the corner of my lips twitching, but I kept my tone warm. You two are finishing each other's sentences now. He grinned, slapping Todd on the back. That's brotherhood for you. And hey, family should look out for each other, right? We were wondering if you might consider investing in our project instead. Minimum is $10,000. I let out a long, practiced sigh. You boys know I only have $20,000 total. Exactly, Kevin beamed. Start with 10. Just give it a try. Once it pays off, you can always add more. I offered them a polite smile, nothing more. No promises, no commitments, just silence. But deep down, I knew they'd taken the bait. After that, Todd and Kevin ramped up their visits, charm, and effort. I could almost see the dollar signs spinning in their heads. But what troubled me most wasn't that. It was Sylvia. She started dropping by more often, saying she just wanted to check in, but something was off. She wasn't as relaxed as before. Her smiles felt thin, her movements overly cautious, like someone trying to act normal while hiding a splinter. She'd come in, glance around as if the room held secrets. Her eyes never settled, and her lips twitched like she had words to say, but swallowed them. Instead, I didn't call her out. Not yet. Instead, I poured her a cup of her favorite jasmine tea, sweetened with a touch of honey, and smiled as if I hadn't noticed a thing. But inside, I was watching, waiting, listening. That day, she sat at the kitchen bar, quietly stirring her teabag string, eyes cast downward, lips sealed. I sat across from her, flipping through grocery flyers like it was any other afternoon. But the space between us felt heavy, like something crouched on the countertop, waiting. I didn't rush her. I let the silence stretch until she had to break it. After a few minutes, she finally lifted her head, speaking carefully and hesitantly. "Mom, are you thinking about investing in that project your friend told you about?" I didn't look up or say yes. I just said, "I'm reading through the materials, trying to understand it. They say the returns are stable, but I haven't decided yet." "Still thinking?" she asked, nodding and sipping her tea. Then, after a pause, "Are you planning to use all $20,000 for it?" Now I looked at her directly. My gaze caught her off guard. She flinched like a child caught sneaking cookies. Her eyes darted away and her voice dropped even lower. "I didn't mean anything by it. Todd just mentioned it. Said maybe you were leaning toward investing and were worried. You know, don't want you to get scammed." That tone, I knew it wasn't hers. It was Todd's script, word for word. I sighed softly, letting my voice remain gentle, but waited. "Sylvia, I appreciate you worrying about me, I really do. But what I don't understand is why your husband is so eager to know exactly how much money I have." She opened her mouth, then closed it again. No answer. I leaned in a little. "Last time he was here, I casually mentioned looking at some investments." The next day, his brother was at my door with a full sales pitch, asking me to fund their project. "Don't you find that timing a bit too convenient?" Still silence, but her face said more than words ever could. The hesitation, the tension, the battle behind her eyes. So I softened again. I couldn't push too hard. Not yet. She was already fragile. "You're my daughter," I said quietly. "I raised you on my own. I know your heart better than anyone. You're not trying to hurt me. You're just caught in the middle. He's said enough things, often enough, to make you unsure." Tears welled in her eyes and she bit her lip. "Mom, he's really under a lot of pressure. I know you don't trust him, but he's not a bad man." I didn't argue. I set my teacup down gently. "I never said he was a bad man," I replied calmly, "but I wonder if he truly sees me as family." She froze but kept going, her voice soft and steady, hands steady, not an ounce of anger, but every word landing where it needed to. "If he saw me as a mother, he wouldn't be eyeing my retirement money like a lottery ticket, and if he really loved you, he wouldn't be using you to get to me." The room fell still. That last sentence hit like a velvet-gloved hammer. Sylvia lowered her head. No more protests, no more defenses. He understood, but she wasn't ready to admit it yet. I'd planted the seed, and that seed would grow. She left a short while later, eyes red, without saying goodbye, just walked out the door and didn't look back. Alone in the kitchen, I stood with her face flickering in my mind like a candle about to go out. It hurt, of course it did, but I knew better than to let that pain cloud me. This wasn't the time to be soft. As I rinsed and dried the cups and carefully placed them back in the cabinet, a sharp thought took hold. I need proof, solid proof. Not for her, not even for me, but for what's coming next. When you reach the point of locking your doors against people who share your dinner table, the warmth has long gone. But cold doesn't mean careless. I pulled my old phone from the drawer. Screen scuffed, corner cracked. But the voice memo app still worked grainy, yes, but good enough to catch conversations behind closed doors. Sometimes that's all you need. It was time to stop defending and start recording. For the next few days, I acted like nothing had changed. Cooked, cleaned, took my walks, fed the birds like always. But I was watching, sure enough, Todd and Kevin started coming around more frequently. But this time, their pace was different. They stopped pushing, stopped pitching. Instead, they played the long game. One afternoon, Kevin arrived with a brown paper bag full of cookies. "Hand-baked," he said, from a friend's boutique bakery. "If our farm really takes off," he winked, "maybe we can bring you in as a partner." I smiled. "You boys really don't need to keep thinking about me. I don't have the means to bankroll anyone." Kevin grinned. "Still, Aunt Tara, you deserve to be included. You've got taste, and every venture needs a little class." Included. "No, sweetheart," I thought. "You mean liable?" "You mean on the hook I let it slide." Later, when the two of them helped me move boxes in the kitchen, I slipped my old phone beneath the flower pot on the dining table. A perfect angle with good range. They didn't notice when they returned to sit, they settled quickly. And that's when the masks dropped. Too ambitious? "You believe that?" Kevin scoffed quietly. She's sharp, no way she told the truth. Stick to the plan, Todd muttered. Have Sylvia come back? Act more desperate. Really sell the stress. She'll cave once the cash hits. I'll move it into my name. We have to act before she backpedals old lady's panic easy. Any hesitation and she's out. Then came the line that chilled me to the bone. Honestly, if one day she just didn't wake up, wouldn't that be easier? The money goes to Sylvia anyway. Nervous, quiet laughter followed. Ever notice the older they get, the more scared they are of confrontation and being alone? Makes them easy. Every single word was caught on tape, that busted-up phone. God bless it. Recorded it all the next morning. I clipped the worst parts and sent the audio to an old friend, retired now, but once a legal clerk at the county office. She replied within minutes with one line. Be careful, desperate men do reckless things. That night, I gathered my old bank statements, my will, and some notarized papers, packed them into a folder, and locked it inside the wooden chest beneath my bed. I moved the key to a new hiding spot. A better one. I wasn't worried they'd try to steal anything outright. They weren't bold enough for that. I feared they'd trick me. A signature here, a form I didn't fully read, a temporary permission that suddenly turned permanent. These days, people don't break in. They walk in smiling and convince you to hand it over yourself. That old wooden chest is everything, the last firewall between me and ruin. That night, I stood in the bedroom doorway, staring at the old wooden chest and thinking, this box holds everything, the sum of my life's work, and now it's vulnerable. The day they came back, the sky was heavy and gray, clouds hanging low, branches scraping the windows like restless fingers. The wind carried that uneasy feeling, like something was about to break. I sat at the table, flipping through the familiar community organic garden brochure Showtime. They'd said they were stopping by to drop off new farm product samples and maybe talk more about investment options. I left the brochure wide open, the phrase, if family input is required, consult before investing, underlined in red. My recorder was already hidden in an empty tea tin on the lowest shelf of the bookcase. The doorbell rang, but I didn't look up. Todd came in first, all fake sunshine. Tara, low pressure today. Hope your head's not acting up. I'm fine, I said flatly. Just reviewing some project materials. Kevin followed, chipper as ever, carrying a paper bag. Homemade onion bacon cookies today. My own recipe. Tell me what you think. I took the bag without a glance. Thanks. They sat, exchanging a quick glance. I caught it, but pretended not to. I sighed, softening reluctantly. I've been thinking, I said. Your project might not be as risky as I thought. Todd's eyes flicked up. Kevin's lit like Christmas morning. But I can't commit much. I could only put in 10,000, no more. Tension filled the room for a moment before Kevin recovered with an eager smile. Tense is fine. You don't have to do more now. Once it starts paying off, you can add more later. Todd nodded quickly. Exactly, Tara. This isn't about money. It's about bringing you in as a partner, first-tier family. I sipped my coffee. You know my situation? 10,000 is my lifeline. If it goes wrong, I don't get a second chance. Kevin's fingers tapped the table, betraying the adrenaline beneath that grin. Trust us. We won't let you down. No, I thought. You'll just sign my name on something I haven't read and funnel what's left into your startup. I wasn't born yesterday. I nodded slowly, gathering the brochure. Here's what I'm thinking. Come back next week. I'll have my friend, a retired attorney, look over the contract. Good with wording. Kevin blinked. Todd stiffened slightly. What? Kevin asked. You want her to review the contract? I smiled sweetly. Of course. I'd never sign blindly. That'd cost me sleep. At that moment, the TV piped up perfectly. Before investing, always verify the identity of all parties involved. I clicked off the screen and looked right at them. Exactly. They fell silent. That day's fishing expedition had gone sideways for them. Just mentioning a lawyer cracked their confidence like a dropped teacup. Now I'd seen it all. The fear in their eyes, the flicker of panic when their plan stumbled, the desperation barely concealed. They were swimming near the boat, exposed. All that remained was for me to decide when to reel them in that Saturday. The sky was heavy again, gray like wet ash. The living room was dim, shadows pooling in corners. Wind slipped through window cracks, making curtains balloon and sway like uneasy lungs. I didn't turn on lights, just boiled black tea and let it steep while the house stayed quiet. As I fished the tea bag out, the door creaked open. Sylvia stepped in alone. No, Todd. He carried a grocery bag with milk peeking out. Just in the neighborhood, she said. Casual? Almost too casual. Her words were light, but her steps slow, waiting on something unspoken. I nodded silently, kept flipping the TV guide, but my eyes tracked her. Dark circles shadowed her eyes. Tight corners of her mouth spoke of sleepless nights and recent tears. She sat at the couch edge, hands folded too neatly, as if holding herself together. "Mom," she whispered, voice thin. "I've been feeling off like something's wrong. Are you hiding something from me?" I paused, letting the question hang, then met her eyes. "You want the truth?" I asked quietly. She nodded barely, as if fearing the truth might shatter her. I said nothing. I stood, went to the side drawer, pulled out my old phone, screen scratched, battery weak, but sufficient for today. I unlocked it, opened voice memos, and tapped play, set it gently on the coffee table between us. The recording began. Todd's voice, low and clear, came first. Kevin's followed, familiar and chilling. "Do it just like I told you. Get Sylvia to ask again. Make it sound real, like she's falling apart. We have to hit her before she locks up. The old witch gets emotional. She'll back off." Pause. Then Kevin's darker voice, almost laughing. "Honestly, if she just dropped dead in her sleep, it'd be easier. Sylvia inherits everything." Then the final cruel note. "Come on, old people. They're scared of everything. Conflict, loneliness, offending anyone. Makes them easy." Silence. Then Kevin's nervous laughter. Sylvia shot up, struck like a violent blow, her body locked, skin drained, lips trembling. He said, "If you just died, it'd make things easier," she whispered, voice cracking like glass. I held her gaze, silent. She opened her mouth as if to speak, then closed it again. Her hands shook. Her face cycled through shock, confusion, disbelief, then the sharp fall into heartbreak. "He was acting," she said. All this time, she hadn't been talking to me, but to herself, trying to make the nightmare real. "Even me," she whispered. "He used me." I still said nothing, only exhaled a long, quiet breath. She collapsed onto the sofa like a deflated balloon. I thought he was just panicked, trying to build something for us. She choked on her breath. "But he joked about you dying." She began to cry, not loud sobs, but quiet pain that makes people look away. She turned from me, covered her face, shoulders shaking. I pulled a tissue from the box and handed it to her. No words, just paper. "You're my daughter," I said softly. "You trusted the wrong man. I'll never blame you. But now you have to be clear-eyed. No more letting him use you as a shield." She nodded slowly, still hunched, breath catching in hiccups. Tears slowed, her spine straightened. Then she looked up, voice rough but steady. "Mom, what do we do now?" I met her gaze, knowing in that moment she'd heard the truth, not because I told her, but because she'd seen it herself. His voice, his plan, his cruelty. No, now, she was awake. The day they returned, the weather betrayed them, bright and cloudless, as if the sky hadn't gotten the memo. Kevin, clinging to routine, walked in with a box of so-called artisan baked goods. Todd followed, wearing the same gray wool cardigan he always put on to look casually respectable. His smile was fixed. His eyes flicked toward the hallway cabinet. The spot where I kept my medicine and bank documents. I didn't greet them warmly, just motioned to sit on the table, waiting quietly. Sat a single cup of black coffee and one crisp document, the printed transcript of their recorded conversation. The paper lay neatly on the lace tablecloth, its edges sharp in the soft afternoon light. Kevin barely sat before launching into his pitch. "Aunt Tara, we really polished the proposal this time. You mentioned your friend who reviews contracts. We actually prepared a draft for her." I raised my hand. "We're not discussing the project today." my voice calm and steady. Today, we discuss your plan. Todd clenched his jaw, eyes flicking down. Kevin's grin froze mid-sentence. Plan? He asked, trying to sound casual but failing. I don't know what you mean. I slid the document across the table. Last time you were here, I had an old phone tucked under the flower pot. It caught some interesting material. Todd's eyes locked on the page. His face drained of color like a switch flipped. Kevin leaned in, still faking confusion. What is this? We don't. I didn't look at him. My voice was steady, cold as stone, as I read the words aloud. As soon as the money hits, I'll transfer it into my name. If she doesn't wake up one day, it's easier that way. Sylvia inherits everything. Old people are scared of hassle, of loneliness, of confrontation. That makes them easy to fool. Silence fell, thick and unforgiving. Kevin's face twitched. Desperation crept in as he opened his mouth. That was a joke, Tara. Come on, a misunderstanding. I fixed my gaze on him, unflinching. But I'm flinching. You were betting I'm old, that I'm stupid, that I'll die soon and save you the paperwork. Isn't that right? Todd said nothing. His face had gone pale gray. Every lie, every scheme unraveled here under my roof. Thread by thread I turned to him, voice calm, as if discussing market trends. Do you have any idea what I went through to raise Sylvia on my own? Do you even understand sacrifice? You want to start a business? Fine, but you thought my death would make things easier. My life savings were never yours to skim, and if you saw me as a hurdle, not a human being, let me be clear, this hurdle isn't going anywhere. I've still got years left in me. Todd's lips parted. Tara, you're taking this all wrong. No, I cut him off. I've already notified the bank. All large transfers are frozen. Unless I personally approve, I updated the trust. My lawyer was here. Wednesday. Not a dime goes to anyone who isn't blood. Then I faced Kevin. If I see you near this house again, I'll call the police. Kevin jumped up, face flaming, voice cracking. You're paranoid. This is all in your head. I didn't flinch. The recording you heard isn't the only one. I have the full version, including when you and Todd planned how to wear me down. He went silent, stared for 2 seconds, then spun around and slammed the door behind him. Todd stood there, expressionless, like the truth knocked the wind out of him, but pride wouldn't let him show it. I looked right through him, voice low and final. You were never my son. You were my daughter's husband, and for that I gave you the respect the title deserved. But as of today, that title earns you nothing from me. He lowered his head, shoulders drooping, muttering bitterly, Sylvia's going to regret this. I met his gaze unflinchingly. No, I said quietly, what she'll regret is not seeing through you sooner. He said no more, just turned and walked out, eyes burning, fists clenched, all pretense stripped away. I watched him leave, not with hate, not even anger, but with cold clarity and the quiet knowledge that for the first time in this long game, the table had turned 3 days after Todd left. Sylvia returned silently, carrying nothing but a suitcase. No tears, no declarations. She rolled her luggage to the entryway, set it down, and walked straight to the kitchen as if she'd never left. She pulled out spinach and began sorting leaves with quiet purpose. I didn't ask what she decided. I knew she'd tell me when ready that evening. Over dinner, she finally spoke. Mom, her voice steady. I sold the house. I moved out. I have a short-term rental lined up, but before that, I want to stay with you for a while. Is that okay? I nodded. If you've made your choice, that's enough. She hesitated, then added, I ended things. He tried to talk me into staying, but I couldn't even look him in the eyes. I looked up, voice soft but steady. You weren't holding on to him, Sylvia. You were holding on to who you thought he was. Her lips pressed together. She nodded faintly. I thought if I stood by him, carried the weight with him, even if he had little to give back, it would mean something. But I didn't know the ugliest part of him was hiding right under the surface. I reached across the table, took her hand, and gently squeezed it. What breaks us, I whispered, isn't poverty, bad luck, or failure. It's giving someone your trust and watching them treat it like weakness. Sylvia said nothing, just nodded. In her eyes, I saw that quiet, painful clarity of someone finally awake. After dinner, I handed her a small folder I'd kept tucked away for years. "Your father left these before he passed," I said. "They're not money, just notes, ideas, plans. He made mistakes and dreamed big, but he never lied to me." She took the folder with a tremble, fingers curling like it was sacred. "You loved," I told her. "That's not your crime. The only one to blame is the man who took that love and used it." That night, we sat on the balcony, saying little, just listening to wind brushing through courtyard trees, leaves whispering stories too old to tell. Aloud, she didn't cry, but I knew she was done. Weeks later, I signed up for a pottery class at the community center and picked up a volunteer form to help with the garden behind the building. The administrator chuckled. "You're not exactly young anymore." I smiled back. "I spent my youth saving money. Now I get to play in the dirt." Outside, the sun warmed just as I liked walking home with a canvas tote. I passed kids kicking a ball down the sidewalk. I stopped to watch and smiled. When I opened the door, Sylvia was in the living room organizing hangers. She glanced up, hair tucked behind her ear, and gave me a tired but genuine smile. "Mom, what did you do today?" I held up the tote. "Made a mug, or tried it turned into an ashtray somewhere along the way." We laughed. Sometimes you think you're getting old, but really, you're just starting to see people for who they are. Growing older isn't retreating from life's battles. It means switching battlefields and fighting for yourself. I didn't give my retirement money away, but I gave myself something better. Peace. I wasn't fooled. I wasn't broken, most importantly. I was still holding the reins of my own life. That right there, that was the real inheritance.